So our next wonderful speaker is Alice Kirkpatrick. So Alice and I are both in the CLA. Actually, you know what? Everyone that's on here, except for Rosemary, who just joined us, we're all in CLA, which is Connected Leaders Academy. And we are all loving Jose, who will be on at 1 o'clock. So he speaks on at 1, and Alice needs to get going. So I need to let her speak now. So with that, if everyone could mute themselves, please, we are going to let Alice speak. Go for it, Alice. Woohoo.
All right. Wow. These are phenomenal speakers today, and we still got so many more to go. Thank you, Marianne. And I want to say, talk about wisdom on the front porch. Okay, I know that's a shameless plug for my podcast and magazine, but that wisdom is how I lead. That wisdom is how I bring value into your lives because you are my why. Yeah, and I do really want to thank you, Dr. Marianne, for honoring me today by allowing me to be here with all of these amazing speakers. I had a talk all prepared about leadership this morning, but I felt, it was only about stuff that you already know. And I wanted to take a deeper dive into leadership, provide you with perspective and contemplate and consider and talk about speaking correctly, communicating. Let's see if I can keep my stuttering to a little bit. Now, you might have heard of Genghis Khan and that he was a leader. He was evil, bloodthirsty. So, was he really a leader? Well, he led his team, even with evil and a bloodthirsty passion. But according to Forbes, he also ruled a self-made kingdom of nearly 12 million square miles, which lasted in parts for nearly 7 centuries. He also, I don't know if you knew this, I didn't know this, he abolished torture. He embraced religious freedom, united disparate tribes. They're all out there doing their own thing. He hated aristocrat privilege, put it in words I can say, and he ran his kingdoms meritocratically. Based on merits, he loved learning and advanced the rights of women in the Mongol society. Now, you probably don't usually think of those things with Genghis Khan. So, and then you have, as we heard earlier, Sifu Raphael. Sifu led his sons by pursuing their own successful enterprises when they were still in high school or around high school age. He led with kindness, compassion for others, but strength and wisdom so they would know who they are, what they do, and how to treat others along the way. Then you have temple leaders like Jim Jones in the 1970s who had a huge following. His cult, he led them to move from North America to South America, a whole other country, just to commit mass suicide. Yet he was a leader. Now, today you have John Maxwell, who has his own following, and he teaches leaders to become great leaders, teaching them about the qualities of a leader, such as taking full responsibility for your team's actions, no matter what those actions are. Now, you're going to hear many more great speakers today, leaders of their own teams who want to share their insights to guide you to where you want to go, to where they want to go, and in ways that will be beneficial to them and to you. Now, I've shared a couple of famous or infamous leaders here who were very different in how they led and to what they led, or for a better lack of word, their followers too. There's a saying that there are leaders and there are followers, but sometimes you are both. Now, when you think of leaders, you probably don't automatically think of a couple of examples I've mentioned here, but let me give you a few more that you can think about. Mahatma Gandhi was a leader. Mandela was a leader. Joan of Arc was a leader, and they led by example and sacrifice. Abraham Lincoln, Martin Luther King Jr., Queen Victoria were great leaders who led for their people to have a better life. Maya Angelou, Golda Meir, Mother Teresa, Cleopatra, Alexander the Great, Henry Ford, Winston Churchill, all leaders. But here's some leaders you may not even think of, and maybe you haven't heard of them. Tecumseh, Osceola, Geronimo, Redbird, Wilma Mankiller, who was not, by the way, a man killer, but she was a principal chief of the Cherokee Nation in 1985 and became the first woman ever to lead a major Native American tribe. So, who are some of the leaders today? As I mentioned, John Maxwell. He has a leadership that creates other leaders. You've got Grant Cardone, Ed Milet, Earl Nightingale, Napoleon Hill, Bob Proctor, Tony Robbins, and whether you like them or not, President Trump, Priscilla Shirer, President Obama, Oprah Winfrey, and even Taylor Swift. Now, what about those who are leaders in their niche? They aren't out there conquering the whole world. Kind of they are. But there's Joe Rogan, Richard Kiyosaki, Steve Jobs, Mel Robbins. There's actors and actresses and singers and many others. And by these examples, stature and size is not a quality of leadership. You know, I was pretty small in stature myself most all of my life. It wasn't until the summer when I turned 16 that I finally grew and suddenly reached average height. But it wasn't until I was 21, 5 years later, when I was at a gathering at my parents' home, and someone there asked my older sister, "How does it feel to be shorter than your younger sister?" And I thought, my sister's not shorter than me. And then I looked at her and I realized that her head was tilted up, her eyes were tilted up, and she was looking up to me. Even though I had grown in size physically, in my mind, there was still this perspective that I was small. So, where is your mind's perspective with your leadership? Now, this would be a good segue to say who I am. So, before January 2022, I was a nobody. At least that's what I incorrectly thought. Then I went to my first mastermind, and this whole new world that I didn't even know existed opened up. Within 4 months, I had my first summit and my first live show that turned into a podcast. And within that first 6 months, I had my first bestseller. Within 10 months, I had 11 books, and 8 of them were #1 bestsellers. Then I became a publisher myself. And today I am fired up and ignited with my 2 podcasts, my magazine, my membership, my trainings, my speaker, and my speaking awards, and so many more things that I do. But they all go to my why. You are my why. Adding value into you, passing that legacy down to my grandchildren so they know they can be and live what really lights them up. Now, for some people, but not all, it seems to be a natural thing being a leader. A couple of days ago, Clifford Starks was on my podcast, was on the front porch, and I asked him, "When did you first become a leader?" You know what his response was? Well, unless you listen to the podcast, your answer is no, but I'll let you know what he said. Clifford Starks said that he became a leader when he was 4 years old, but he didn't recognize it for what it was until he was 37 years old when his father talked to him, communicating with him, and told him that he was a leader. You see, some leaders, they don't even recognize themselves as a leader. In fact, that was me. I was sure I wasn't a leader. I was always a follower, where anytime I tried to assert my leadership, it failed over and over and over again. That was until twice, on 2 separate occasions, my family looked to me to lead them. I'm like, what? Me? No, that's my husband's role. And that was my must take charge of everything daughter-in-law's role. Her words, not mine. But when the 2 of them looked at me to lead, that was like that time back when my sister and I were looking at each other, and she looked up at me, and my perspective changed. So I ask you again, where is your perspective with yourself in being a leader? And And for some leaders, people just naturally gravitate to them. My sister, just older than me, was like that. It didn't matter where we were. It amazed me every time. Even now, it still does, how quickly other people gravitate to her. Jose Escobar is like that. He just draws people to him. So did Robin Williams. Didn't think of him as a leader, did you? He had a following like crazy, like Taylor Swift does. Sometimes I think people are silent leaders until they aren't. But it's not like that for every leader. It's good to know that leadership can be learned, and really great leaders always have a mentor or two. So, what qualifies as a leader? Most of you know the easy answers to this, so I don't need to go over them. Personally, I believe one of the most important qualifications is what I said earlier. You have to have a mentor yourself, and you have to be teachable. Hitler was a leader. He was mentored by his dad and his grandfather and a few others, and he learned how to be a leader from them, how to rule with superiority, fear, and hate. Writer and philosopher Ralph Waldo Emerson once said, "Our chief want is someone who will inspire us to be what we know we could be." Now, to paraphrase Colin Baker, he says that Emerson is talking about how leaders can help others achieve great things. Leadership isn't about holding authority over someone else. It's almost positively influencing people to reach new heights. Well, Colin, I think that's only part of it because I don't think Hitler or Genghis Khan were positively influencing people to new heights, though in their minds that might have been how they justified it. But they did influence people to make a difference, albeit a negative difference. Are you a leader? Answer these questions. Why would you want to be a leader? What do you want to lead people from, and what do you want to lead them to? What type of a leader do you want to be? And how are you going to lead? What qualifies a leader, especially a great leader? Well, from these few examples I've already mentioned, what I see that great leaders have is that they are equipped. They are equipped in great communication. They know their team knows what they want, and their followers know what they want. They have a desire for change. They are action takers with a perseverance in igniting that change. They have courage. They have a team around them. They are teachable and they are teachers. They have to teach their team in the way they lead so their team can lead others. They know their why and they can see their dream as if it is a reality that has already happened. And they know how to change the perspective as they are learning and growing, having humility and knowing how to be grateful. Okay, I hear you. I hear you that not all leaders have humility and know how to be grateful. But the truly great leaders that we admire and want to fashion our own leadership after, they do. And I think this question should be answered. Why do you suppose it's important to have a team for leadership? All of these leaders had teams, except maybe Sifu. But he had to have those around him who backed him up and didn't butt in and counter his teachings for his sons. So again, I ask you, why do you need a team? Well, I believe leaders need a team to get more followers on their team. And here's what I mean by that. Who is going to follow anyone that no one else is following? We see it in social media. The ones who get followed are the ones who have followers already. Do you think Taylor Swift would be leading if she didn't have the massive following on social media that she has? And those on your team, the team players, they play a very integral role. They are like-minded. And so I'm going to use this phrase dream or vision here. You can call it whatever you like. They are also like-minded to the dream or vision, and they have the qualities of leadership themselves. They can carry out the dream or vision on their own as leaders while still being a follower to the main leader. Now, dissension through poor leadership is also how some leaders have mutinies, and in my humble opinion, the team leaders think they can do without the main leader. Well, if they have no bond, no reason to communicate with their leader, and the leader doesn't give them that, then why would they stay? Why would you stay? So, leader needs to know how to keep his team satisfied, fulfilled, and on fire for the dream or vision. Jim Rohn says, make sure we don't sacrifice some values for others. Now let that sink in for a little bit. Leaders need to communicate and communicate clearly, as Cedric told us earlier. Jim Rohn also tells us to take thoughtful care about putting into words how you feel. Take the time to say something unique about how you care. Words can be clumsy, especially when you try to say what is in your head and your heart. Sorry, Jim, I just had to. It's too unique. And being unique, being authentic is important. So, as Jim would have said, words can be clumsy, especially when you try to say what is in your head and what is in your heart. Sorry, Joe. He says that is how you build empires and create great societies. It's how you share the great intricacies of philosophy and change someone's life. Make it unique as you can to get the point across. So you see, leaders do need to be teachable. Another quote from Jim Rohn is not self-sacrifice, but self-development to be there for everybody else. I will take care of me for you if you take care of you for me. Leaders also remember the people who make the sacrifices to make others great. Jim Rohn's mother scrubbed floors for years and years to get her kids into college. Les Brown's mother is part of his great story. She wasn't a great leader like Les Brown, but she sacrificed so Les Brown could be a great leader. So when you look at a leader, I think the most important question to ask how they balance career and wealth and family and all of that is important. But what you should be asking is the most important question that Jim Rohn just asked. Who scrubbed the floors so they could be a great leader? And who's scrubbing the floors now so you can be a great leader? Great leaders also teach justice. Don't believe me? Talk to football coach Bill McCartney, head of coach at the University of Colorado Boulder for 13 seasons. He compiled a .624 record, won over 3 consecutive Big 8 conference titles, and his 1990 team was crowned as national champions by the Associated Press, splitting the title with Georgia Tech, first in the final coaches poll. Now, however, you most likely recognize him as one of the founders of Promise Keepers Men's Ministry. That's how he leads with justice. Okay, I'm from Texas. You know there had to be a football reference in here at some point. So lead with justice. You have to know what justice is. And I'm going to say each one separately so you can get them. Comes from Proverbs 29, actually. Justice is being fair. Justice is reasonable. It's faithful, equitable, has decency, correctness, it's lawful, and it has impartiality. It's also righteous. Now, I've also seen that a leader has to have courage. Leaders are rebuilding, they're restoring, they're raising others up, loosening chains, untying cords, setting the oppressed free. Now, picture this in your mind. Leaders have to be a well-watered garden that has a continuous spring of water that doesn't dry up when the weather gets hot. This makes me think of a great leader, one who knows where to get strength in themselves, where to get satisfaction in their life. Leaders also know who's guarding them, protecting them in the back, because they're looking forward and guiding others going forward. Leaders know who to cry to for help when they need it personally and when they need it to guide their people for them. They also know they are that path of courage for others. Now, recently I was at a Life Search event and the comedian Michael Jr. was there. I really like him. I was so glad he was there. He talked about one time how he was entering a prison to speak. And on the path to where the men were, Michael Jr. noticed that one by one the guards were holding back. And he kind of began to get a little bit scared. And with each step, he's thinking of what he could do to lead these prisoners into a few moments of joy, but nothing was coming to him. He knew that the guards could still get to him if something happened, but not until something happened. He had to keep stepping on the path of courage through the fear that was gripping him. And being a man of faith, he kept asking God to give him something. And he gets to the end of this path and he still has nothing. Then he sees the men in the circle, and at the head of the circle, there was his something. It was a man who had a white beard, and his name was Moses. So, being courageous in the strength of God, he walked right up to the man, looked him right in the eyes, and said, "The next time you see that warden, you walk straight up to him, you look him in the eyes and say, 'My name is Moses. Let my people go.'" Now, leaders don't always know when their courage is going to be needed, but they always know where their courage is coming from. Do you know where your courage comes from? Do you know what you are leading others to? How are you leading your teams? How are you leading them so they can go out and gather followers without causing a mutiny? What is your dream or vision for change, for taking action, for changing perspectives? And how are you doing this? Now, if you go to the website know-the-ada.com, that is knowtheada.com with the dashes in between, you will find Tony Cello, a congressman and a person living with epilepsy who was a crucial advocate for the ADA within the political sphere. He authored and helped pass the Fair Housing Amendment Act of 1988, which was the precursor to the ADA. Justin Dart Jr., often held as a godfather of the ADA. His leadership was pivotal in the fight for disability rights. Survivor of polio and a wheelchair user, his personal experiences with discrimination fueled his passion for advocacy. He co-founded the American Association of People with Disabilities and tirelessly lobbied Congress to pass the ADA. You don't have to be charismatic to be a leader, but it sure can help, and that too can be learned. Judith Heumann, forced to be reckoned with within the sphere's disability rights, she was denied the right to teach in New York City public schools because she was in a wheelchair. Did you get that? She was denied to teach because she had to use a wheelchair. Heumann's lawsuit against the Board of Education marked one of the first disability right causes brought to the federal courts. And there's more. Even George H.W. Bush, the leader of our nation, whether you like him or not, he can't be overlooked in this because his decision to sign the ADA into law on July 26, 1990 was a defining moment in the history of disability rights in the United States. Now, what about those you may not consider a leader, and perhaps you don't even know about, like Fatima Al-Faqih, founder of and it's HRI, I don't know how else to say it. She's the founder of the world's first university, documented by the Guinness Book of World Records as the oldest existing and continually operating educational institution in the world. She paved the way for higher education in AD 859. That's right, it was the year 859, a legacy that continues to this day. And get this, Hedy Lamarr, best known for being an actress in MGM Studios during the Golden Age, 30s and 40s, This intelligent and talented Austrian-born woman invented the technology called the spread spectrum, which led the way to how we communicate in our world today. Now, it was patented, and she gave it to the World War II effort, donated it. But even though the technology wasn't used during the war, it's used today for the technology for GPS, Wi-Fi, and Bluetooth. Now, you may not think of her as a leader because she invented that, but she was definitely a leader with a follower in her acting career. So remember when I talked about those who scrub floors? You, fathers of daughters, you want your daughters to grow up to be leaders instead of followers, right? Give them someone to look up to, besides yourself, of course. Give your daughters and give your sons other examples of those who did something unique so others can do great things. Corrie ten Boom led others to know that it was okay to speak up about injustice in culture and injustice in themselves, but mostly she led others to find a better path, a better way of being. Her main mission in life was not advocating against the injustice of one of history's most vile and cruel events. She was an advocacy for change in people's hearts and for them to see that there's something better for them, no matter what their situation in life is. She lived it. She helped others live it. And though she started out herself without a team, she did acquire a team and she taught others how to have a team. One thing that I didn't catch about Corrie until recently was that she made people feel important. Those who were beaten down, they were important. Those who were imprisoned wrongfully or rightfully, she still made them feel important. Those who never felt like they mattered in this world ever, she made them feel important. Alexander Den Heyer is quoted as saying, "When I talk to managers, I get the feeling they are important. When I talk to leaders, I get the feeling that I'm important." So remember to watch your mindset. Adlai Stevenson says it's hard to lead a cavalry charge if you think you look funny on a horse, but you can change your perspective. Dwight D. Eisenhower said, "Leadership is the art of getting someone else to do something you want done because he wants to do it." He also said, "You don't lead by hitting people over the head. That's assault, not leadership." And if you have young kids, you might recognize this quote from the show A Bug's Life. First rule of leadership: everything is your fault. I like what James Gibbons says, "There are no office hours for leaders." We've heard that with our speakers today already. Now, perhaps you do not consider yourself to be a giant leader. Maybe it's your role as a leader to lead others to scrub the path of courage so that those other leaders can lead in their uniqueness. So whether you're a floor scrubber or a leader of many, remember what George S. Patton and what President Franklin Roosevelt said. Five-star General George S. Patton said, "Never tell people how to do things. Tell them what to do, and they will surprise you with their ingenuity." President Franklin Roosevelt said, "It is a terrible thing to look over your shoulder when you're trying to lead and find that no one is there." So let's go back to Jim Rohn for a moment. Make it unique as you can to get your point across. Take the time to say something unique, something authentic about how you care. Brian Tracy said this about leaders. Leaders think and talk about the solutions. Followers think and talk about the problems. And remember this from Mark Twain: keep away from people who try to belittle your ambitions. Small people always do that, but the really great make you feel that you too can become great. So my last quote for you is this: you have great value in you. You are worthy. You are enough, and you certainly do matter. And that's from me. I'm L.S. Kirkpatrick, and I went from scrubber to leader. Now you go out and be that great leader you dream and see in your vision.
Alice Kirkpatrick, I am so proud of you. That was outstanding. outstanding. Can we get a standing ovation at home, people, for my girl here? Oh, what I told her in one of our sessions. So we do some coaching together. She was like, I'm going to talk on your summit. And I'm like, you sure are. This was spectacular. I am so, you were, yeah, that's it. No words. It's hard to make me speechless. That doesn't happen often. Okay, everybody stop, they're all going, yeah, yeah. Hard to make me stop talking. So super, super proud. That was outstanding, amazing. And it's funny because when you said don't tell them what to do, just tell them, which is, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to tell you what to do on your speech. You're going to do what am I going to talk about? I don't know what you're going to talk about it. The theme's authentic leaders. I don't know what you want to talk about. I'm just here observing. And also talking about Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn is one of my favorites. Like I could listen to Jim all day long, and he has a really specific way of speaking. So I absolutely adore him. And for those who don't know who we're talking about, Jim Rohn is no longer with us on this plane, but he was amazing. And I believe he was Tony Robbins' coach, and that's how I heard about him in the first place. Absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you. Please stay with us as long as you can. And that was amazing. Yay!